Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for all the participants of the session joining us via various digital platforms, including Teams, YouTube, Facebook, and other mediums. We have 45 minutes for this important session theme and look forward to all of you engaging. I'm not sure if you have the facility to ask questions or share comments, but would be wonderful to have your engagement and sharing your experiences and insights as we go through this session on addressing the informal economy needs, micro, small, and medium enterprises digital transformation. Let me start by introducing our esteemed panelists for this session. First of our panel members, Ms. Mantasha Ahmed. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Ahmed. She is the President, Association of Fashion Designers of Bangladesh. Mantasha Ahmed is an eminent SME expert and a successful entrepreneur of Bangladesh. She is the founder president of Association of Fashion Designers of Bangladesh and the president. In August 20, she founded Deshi Balobhashi, an e-commerce platform for small and medium enterprises in the handloom and craft sector. She is also the vice chairman of Hisab Plus, an accounting and financial literacy app for rural women entrepreneurs. Mantasha has BSc in software engineering from Independent University Bangladesh and MA in international relations and contemporary political theory from the University of Westminster, London, UK. Mantasha's employment and professional association records include an advisory role at the House of Lords, London, senior communications expert at BRAC, we all know the largest NGO in the world, managing director of RELAS, and also the former board member of SME Foundation Bangladesh and the Indus Entrepreneurs Dhaka chapter. With years of experience in enterprise development and women empowerment, Mantasha designed targeted training programs for women-led SMEs and enhanced skills of hundreds of beneficiaries in fashion and business management. Her current project on digital transformation aims at providing an integrated ICT solution to empower the rural entrepreneurs with relevant skills. Thank you, Ms. Ahmed, for joining us. Our second panel member is Mr. Dima Djani, CEO and founder, ALAMI Technologies Indonesia. Hi, Dima. Thanks for joining us. Dima Djani is the founder of CEO of ALAMI, a financial technology fintech startup that acts as marketplace for Sharia finance. ALAMI is currently focusing on P2P, peer-to-peer financing for small and marketplace for Sharia finance, for small and medium enterprises. And his passion is to ultimately develop Islamic finance industry through innovations. Previously, Dima worked in Citi Corporate Investment Banking Division and Societe Generale Corporate Investment Bank, where he advised the C-suite executives and family offices in Indonesia to tap fixed income or equity investments from banking and capital markets. Moreover, Dima was seconded to the Leverage Finance and Global Capital Management Division in Citigroup Hong Kong to cover Asia Pacific market. Dima is one of the youngest bankers globally who was sent to the Citi Global Credit course in New York, USA. Dima is also active in the Indonesia Islamic finance space by helping to establish Indonesia Islamic Fintech Association, contributing several articles, including lean technology and Sharia finance at islamicmarkets.com, and being speakers at various Islamic or fintech events, such as the 2017 IFN conference in Jakarta. Dima obtained his executive MBA from INSEAD, where he led ALAMI to be the runner-up at the 35th INSEAD Global Venture Competition. Thank you, Dima, for joining us.
Thank you, Rajiv.
And a third panel member is Mr. Mohammed Mezbaul Haque, General Manager, Payment System Department, Bangladesh Bank. Thank you, Mr. Haque, for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Haque is General Manager of Payment Systems Department at Bangladesh Bank with central banking experience over 26 years. In his central banking career, he has worked on both on-site and off-site banking supervision, foreign exchange policy monitoring, automation of central banking operation, and other related fields. He was actively engaged in transforming age-old manual processes of the central bank to a modern technology-based automated processes. He also played an important role in automating government and other social safety net payments, and we all know about Bangladesh, how it's leading on those areas. Mr. Haque possesses special interest on usage of technology to change the life of people and allowing them to advance economically. As a result, he is involved in starting from automation of core banking system of central bank to the journey towards unified payment interface of Bangladesh. He believes maintaining the right balance between innovation and regulation, collaborating public and private sector, and leveraging the technology, it is possible to accomplish the goal of digital Bangladesh. Thank you, Mr. Haque, for joining us. Thank you. I would also now just give you a brief overview of this important session where we are trying to discuss more on the micro and small enterprises. And we all know that COVID-19 pandemic again has highlighted the poor shock responsiveness and vulnerabilities of cottage, micro and small businesses, particularly the informal businesses. With lockdowns in place, the micro, cottage, small enterprises have faced challenges of various kinds of supply chain disruption, reduced demand, lack of capital, and kind of correct business and health related information. And in informal economy, access to payment services, credit and other financial services has got severely constrained due to of course, the informal nature of these enterprises and being in the informal economic space. However, COVID-19 has showed also the pathways to accelerate digital transformation to weather such pandemic and build back better. In fact, recently, Bangladesh Bank has introduced a new kind of business account where cottage, micro, small enterprises can open their business account without the high entry barrier of having a trade license. And there has been a lot of efforts and initiatives by the government, different schemes, subsidies, moratorium, tax breaks, looking at working capital financing. So these initiatives have been going on very effectively in some areas, but the informal space has been kind of left out to the desired nature of involvement. And in this backdrop, the objective of the proposed session is to discuss these paradigm shifts, the need of the informal enterprises, and how to formalize and mainstream that with the formal enterprises into a formal financial and within the digital economy that we talk about, and how to leverage this opportunity for digital transformation of the vast majority of enterprises to build back better. So moving ahead with our esteemed panelists today, I would just start with a very generic thing about knowing more about the space you're working on and what you feel is kind of the gaps or the lacunae that we see in this enterprise space. And very specific, I would try to focus on the micro and small enterprise space that we see are more disadvantaged and what needs to be done in the lines of the digital transformation and the inclusive digital economy we talk about. And just mentioning about your initiatives in this space would be wonderful to hear to start with. So, of course, starting with, I would request Ms. Ahmed to have your responses first, and then I'll go to the other panelists. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Ahmed.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Bangladesh, and my heartfelt greetings to the organizers and the panelists today. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm the president of Association of Fashion Designers of Bangladesh, AFDB, and I'm also the president of Bangladesh India Business Council of Wiki, as Mr. Rajiv Gupta has already mentioned. Bangladesh has a population of over 160 million people, and 49% of our population are women. So today I'll be focusing more on the women entrepreneurs, women-led businesses in Bangladesh and the challenges they face. So the first thing is financing. 25% of our adult population have formal bank accounts, and 75% of those accounts belong to men. So the women, actually 35% women have bank accounts, so 65% would be men. It has increased in the last few years, the number of women owned bank accounts. So it's still a very low percentage, but still the above the regional average of Southeast Asia for women. So the thing is, most women in Bangladesh are in cottage industry, and cottage industry is actually 80, I think it's 87% of the total businesses in Bangladesh. So it's quite a big sector. And even the informal sector, most of them are in the informal businesses because their businesses are not registered. They don't have trade licenses. They don't have official bank accounts. And there's quite a few reasons for them not to have bank accounts. For example, the daily wage workers, they live from hand to mouth. So at the end of the day, when they go home, they have very little or no money left to put in the account. So most of them actually think it's not necessary for them to have a bank account. And then there's household labor. There's family labor. A lot of women help their husbands in the field for farming. So they are not accounted for. They're not part of the salary system. Then there's their literacy level. Lack of literacy, lack of education. These sort of things lead for them not to have bank accounts. And according to ILO, there was a study done in 2010 where they're saying 87% of our population are engaged in informal labor. But I do think that this number has reduced significantly in the last 10 years as there was a big push from the government for paying taxes, and a lot of our farmers were also registered and they were getting stipends through bank accounts. There are women getting stipends through bank accounts. So I think this number has this percentage has reduced. And there's 30 million women borrowers who go to microfinance institutions. That is a very big number. I think almost half of our female population go to microfinance institutions, and they're not properly registered. And for commercial banks, it doesn't really make sense, or it's not feasible for commercial banks to reach out to these women and give them microloans, because most of these women are in very remote areas where these commercial banks don't have branches. So they may have to go and visit their businesses physically, and that is not feasible for them. So I think if we could sort of develop a product, a fintech product that would bring all these women, the MFI women, under the umbrella of a formal banking system, or it doesn't have to be like the regular mainstream bank, but somehow if we could get their data and put them in the system, then I think they would really benefit from it. Because when they go to an MFI, I've met many women taking MFI loans. Most of them take the loan to get their daughters married off or give some money to their husbands. And now to pay off that debt, they'll go to another MFI. And this becomes a vicious cycle. So if we could formalize their banking system, if we could bring them under a formal umbrella through fintech, we would not only get their data, but we would also save them from paying the compounded interest that they're paying through MFIs. So that is the current situation of women in Bangladesh. I can elaborate on these points, but if you want, I'll wait for the next question.
No, I was saying thank you, Ms. Ahmed, for this really starting observations. And in Bangladesh, certainly now you have leading MFIs also trying to digitally transform. And that generation of data would really enable to have more of transactions on various products and services. So really a great way forward. Mr. Haque, I want to come to you. And you have been a regulator, and I was just reading a bio and 26 years of wonderful experience in this space. How do you see, the journey has been in terms of kind of mainstreaming the micro and small? In Bangladesh, you do have a definition of cottage, micro and small enterprises. And what you see the digital platforms and the digital ecosystem is going to enable more and more of these enterprises, this category of enterprises getting mainstreamed into the formal economy so that they are able to get the benefits, both from a banking services perspective or both from a government services perspective. So how do you see this sector growing? And as a regulator, what are the changes you see has happened? And what do you think more can happen in the space? Over to you, Mr. Haque.
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv. Thanks for having me in this session. Actually, as Ms. Ahmed has pointed out, that most of the informal sector of the country is still outside the reach of the formal financial sector. And that is one, she mentioned some barriers like not registered, trade license requirement, and the bureaucratic process of having all these documents, and the burden of having tons of documents to open a bank account and other things. So these are the real things. So we have designed several types of product for MSMEs, but actually the informal sector is not getting the benefit of these things because of these roadblocks. So we recently introduced one different kinds of bank account, which we consulted with the financial intelligence unit and then the other regulatory bodies. And then we come up with a solution that, okay, whether we can bring them under the payment ecosystem with more relaxed bank account, bank or MFS account, whatever they want to have. So recently, in last month, we have issued a circular and we announced that, okay, the merchants who are operating in the informal sector can open bank account with minimum document requirement. Like you can, if you have a national ID, if you have the photograph, and if you have a certificate of professions that you are doing this sort of business, then you can open a bank account and receive the payment in those bank account. We call them as individual retail account, where there will be no limit for transactions. Yes, there is an upper limit, but it is more than the individual account limit. So if you have a bank account and if you receive the payments in your bank account, and then with these transaction trails, bank can develop the loan product, and they can do the credit analysis and they can know about your business, and that's how they can develop their product. In our country, there are many entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs who are working in the Facebook. Actually, they're selling their product in the Facebook, what do we call M-commerce and the F-commerce, and then there are M-commerce and other things. So we are targeting these people that if they have an individual retail account where payments, and that payments will create a trail and a database through which the bank can have the formal credit analysis, and then they can develop the product which can be offered to them in order to remove the barrier of access to finance. So that is how we are planning. We have just started. We are encouraging banks to acquire more and more micro merchants who are basically operating in informal sector. You know, there are many people who are actually selling vegetables and fish and other things through a van. So they are not having any fixed address, but they have their identity, they have their ID card, and they have their photographs, and they are as a member of some associations. So we allow them to open an individual retail account with the banks and MFS. So that is how we are progressing. We are confident that we will be able to bring these people within the payment ecosystem, and that payment by bringing them in the payment ecosystem, we'll be able to bring them under the formal access to finance. That's the plan that we are having right now.
Thank you, Mr. Haque. It's really, really nice to hear the kind of developments that's happening in Bangladesh and the kind of efforts the regulators are making to address the needs of micro, small, and medium. It was very interesting to hear about, you mentioned about members of associations. I'll come back to that because it's quite interesting, because a question that arises in my mind is, what can other partners do and what can other institutions do to drive this kind of a registration and a formalization process because sometimes schemes are quite good in nature, but sometimes implementation and effectiveness of implementation becomes a question. So I'll come back to that. Thank you for that. And over to you, Dima. Dima, thanks for joining. You have been in the Indonesian space and a fintech space, and specifically now Islamic finance space. It would be really good to hear about how you are trying to address the issues and the financing needs of the small and micro enterprises in Indonesia, and just a big kind of a picture about the constraints that exist in Indonesia market right now and how you're trying to address that through ALAMI technologies. So over to you, Dima. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Rajiv, for having me. And it's great to share this panel with the other esteemed speakers as well from Bangladesh. My name is Dima. I'm based in Jakarta, Indonesia. So ALAMI is essentially a P2P platform that operates under a Sharia compliance way. We are one of the two Sharia P2P platform that has already been licensed by the financial regulator in Indonesia. So we are focusing on financing the small and medium enterprises. Our product is primarily invoice financing. So the problem with the Indonesian banks, when they go into the SME sector, as we know, there are a lot of sectors that are asset light. They have a good cash flow, they had a good payers. However, they cannot pledge their house or factories as an asset. Hence, they couldn't get any bank financing. So this P2P industry is really growing, and one of the major drivers is through that invoice financing product. So we're lending invoice financing product or factoring in a Sharia compliant way to as our bread and butter. Our next product would be on the community financing side. So the association part is actually very intriguing for us as well, because the Indonesians, they are actually, a lot of them are grouped into different communities. So when we tap into certain communities, then even in urban areas, they have some sort of moral obligation towards their loan as well. So this is something that we would like to kind of explore on how the moral obligation, especially when it comes to the Islamic communities, vis-a-vis their obligation to repay their loan. So that is one. And second is we are also doing community financing. So we are in partnership with an IoT company, a fishery IoT company to be exact, whereby we are finance the fish farmers. So informal sectors, there's no entity, and all of the data are captured by this IoT company, and we are working together with them, integrating our API so that we can afford a higher risk appetite compared to the banks, while at the same time maintaining our default rate. So I guess that's pretty much what we're doing right now. And going forward, we're trying to actually acquire small banks so that we can also provide the savings product for these SMEs in the informal sectors, because under this pandemic, we see there are just a lot of people, be it from rural area or even urban areas, that's trying to come up with a side business. And typically they just doing it for some doing it because they really want to have extra income, some just doing it to follow the trends and then make just a little bit of money, but they ended up doing it full time because apparently there's a lot of social things going on to help each other years with their small business, home business. So I guess this is an area that we would like to capture as well. And a lot of them are actually trying to embrace a more Islamic lifestyle here. So that's why I think the Islamic finance industry in Indonesia is actually going through a steep curve in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thanks, Dima. That's really wonderful to hear. I would like to dig a bit deeper. It was really interesting to hear about, the element of community financing that you were talking about and the partnership with the IoT company. It seems to be a way where you have these informal enterprises that can be aggregated through a third-party accredited institution like the IoT company and reach out to them in terms of financing. But the case I think you pointed out was more about fish farmers, right? So these are kind of individual fish farmers. Do you think that these kind of models and applications can be used for, the warungs in Indonesia, the whole informal vendor micro space of vegetable sellers that was being talked about, or the small shops, micro merchants that we talk about. So what are you thinking about that? And do you think that's one way of kind of integrating them into the supply chain or integrating them into the financing mechanisms? And do you think there are such third-party companies out there or entities that can support you in this?
Absolutely. I think there are just a lot of startups coming up in different verticals targeting this supply chain and with the end goals of linking it up to financial institutions that hopefully they can have a revenue stream for providing access to finance. So we're looking at, we are partnership with fish farmers, but we have also those for vegetables, especially during this pandemic. There are a lot of less people going to the groceries. They just order it through a lot of these vegetable apps, and it's keep on growing. And even the big rate-hailing apps are actually doing this as well, and on top of the e-commerce. So from my own perspective, what's beautiful about these sort of companies is that they specialize. For example, these IoT fishery companies, they actually have a device to kind of filter the amount of feed to be given to the fishes, because apparently if you give too much, then obviously it's not economically sensible, but then the fishes are also going to be suboptimal, and at the same time if you're doing too less, and they can also predict the weather and everything with some sensors. So we like these technologies about them because they're specializes into things that will help us to increase our risk appetite so that we know the industry a little bit better. We are also in discussion with some of the aggregator for the warungs or the small food stalls by the streets. So they're helping a lot of these warungs in Indonesia to be digitalized and helping them in terms of also the supply chain. So what we're trying to do is to link these fishery companies with these warungs as well, because some of these warungs also purchase fishes. So the idea is if we can finance the upstream, which is the actual farmer who produced the fish, and then all the way down to the customer's mouth who buy this fish in the warung being cooked. So this is ultimately some of the supply chain that we're targeting, so we know where the risk is and how far we can go by extending different types of financing to them. Obviously, technology plays a very important role and be able to integrate, meaning that running this business very efficiently, but at the same time very prudent as well. So we like to partner with these kind of companies, and I guess this is the way financial inclusion would be further pushed forward in Indonesian market, in my opinion.
Thank you, Dima, for this. And I would just take this conversation we had with Dima to Mr. Haque to you. And the interesting element was when you were talking about this new regulation coming in, you also kind of mentioned about, if I heard correctly, you mentioned about, the member associations role in terms of registration and getting them formalized. I would like to hear more about, what your thoughts are on that, and of associations, or in fact, NGOs or implementing partners or development partners like us. What role can we play to really accelerate the implementation of the regulation you have brought about, and what are your plans around this in terms of taking this forward in terms of implementation? If you can let us know more about it. Thank you.
Yeah, Rajiv, basically what we have introduced a kind of different kind of bank account where you can receive your business, you can do the business transactions in those accounts. So basically, in order to open those accounts, the previous regulations was you have to have the registration, you have to have the trade license, you have to have some other, let's say, contract between the landowner and with the merchant. So those are the requirements. But what we are now saying that, okay, you need only national ID and then a photograph and a certificate from any association or local government or anybody who can certify, yes, this is the profession of this person. Because, we are basically creating the account in favor of a business in the name of the business owners. So that is why we need to know what is the actual business is. That is the reason we have put the requirement that, okay, the association can play a role in these areas. That as you see, there are 500,000 entrepreneurs in the Facebook who are selling their products. So mostly they are in the areas of Ms. Ahmed's domain. Actually, they are selling their boutiques. So if they have any certification from this sort of association that, yes, this is a person who is dealing with this thing, and that will give us the assurance, yes, we are opening the account of the appropriate person. And this is why we have kept the provision of that certificate. And you can have any sort of certifications from any professional bodies. If it is a grocery market association, market owner association, it will be fine. If it is a fashion designer association, it will be fine. If it is a certificate from the local representative, it will be fine. But there should be some declaration of professions. That is our objectives. And we want to ensure that this account belongs to that person.
Thank you, Mr. Ed. This is really inspiring and encouraging. We have been working with, Bangladesh Dukan Malik Samiti, where most of all the micro merchants are members of it. So this is really going to benefit these associations, through these associations, the micro merchants and enterprises as we go forward. A big, huge role for the associations to play in this now. So thank you for that. And coming to Ms. Ahmed, thanks for highlighting the needs, and you also touched on the microfinance sector space, and you have been working in the kind of financial and digital literacy space also for enterprises. What do you think is the need for the level of digital and financial literacy for women enterprises? And also because you work in the apparel sector and there's a lot of enterprises that are part of it. And that's one of the growth sectors in Bangladesh. Even if I talk about just those women enterprises in that space, what do you see as gaps on the skill side, on the capability side, that will enable them to use and transact more on the digital platforms that we are talking about?
Thank you. Well, the handicrafts and handloom sector is actually the second largest employment sector, employment generating sector in Bangladesh after farming. So there's a lot of women and men involved in that sector, but the number is declining quite significantly every year. You know, there's lots of issues there as well, lack of patronage, and then, you know, competing with the international market and all that, machine-made products. We've started the page Deshi Bhalobashi. It's now becoming a website. We're integrating the payment gateway systems on the 10th. So I'll talk about a few challenges that we faced. Initially, a lot of my members who are from very remote areas, and they're very, very small entrepreneurs or, you know, cottage industry members, they came to me and said that, you know, when the lockdown started in Bangladesh in March, we were having our Bengali New Year and Eid in a few months, and those are the two biggest festivals in Bangladesh. And most of the entrepreneurs and, you know, weavers, artisans, they all create at least 60 to 70% of their inventory focusing on these two festivals. So because of the lockdown, they could not sell their products and they were stuck with a very large inventory. So that's when we, you know, thought of creating a web-based platform, because people are not going out still. They prefer buying things online. And even before the pandemic, some very large international, businesses like Toys R Us, they started their online operations. It's more effective. They can reduce costs. There's so many advantages. But in Bangladesh, there's so many people. We like to mingle with each other. We like to go out, and shopping is just part of our lifestyles. So we prefer to go to shops physically in person. But the pandemic has taught us that we can also shop online, and we can still have products delivered to us at a convenient time, and the quality will remain the same. So this kind of pushed our entrepreneurs to open their shops online, like mostly on Facebook. We have a very big e-commerce industry in Bangladesh. When we were collecting products, and then we asked our entrepreneurs to send photographs of their products. And that was one of the biggest challenges we had. Although it's a very simple thing, taking pictures of your products. But a lot of women had challenges taking good quality photographs, because we'll upload them on the, when you buy something from the website, you see the photograph and then you buy it. So if the photograph is not good quality, you don't really accept it. So we give them photography training, and then we opened e-shops for them. Currently, we have on our website, we have about 18 vendors, 18 e-shops, but we have 70 vendors connected with us, and the rest of them really are not familiar with the technology, and they're saying, Appa, they call me Appa. Appa is like sister. So Appa, can you please open the shop for us? We're not able to do it. So then we took another strategy, which is currently ongoing, that we pair them up with someone from the new generation. It could be their son or daughter or a neighbor's kid, who's friendly with internet and Facebook and all that. So we're getting them to help these entrepreneurs. So these are some of the basic challenges. And I think the pandemic has taught us that technology can be a solution to all these problems, like the 30 million microfinance borrowers. If we could create an app and get, for example, there's an app called Talikhata in Bangladesh, which is basically a very simple app for vendors or self-employed people. They can keep track of their grocery stores, they can corner shops. They can keep track of their daily transactions and balance payments and all that. And at the same time, we get their data. But why do they use this app? Why do most people like bKash? Because these are simple apps. When they have a mobile phone, they can access bKash, they can access Talikhata. So I think it's very, very important that we give our women access to mobile phone and mobile data, because many of the households have only one mobile phone, and that is generally used by the male member of the family. And that is where the women are facing challenges. So it's a very simple problem, which has a simple solution. The mobile phone should be more available at a cheaper price. There should be no tax, VAT, on these and mobile data. Yes, I think these are some of the solutions. And if you ask me what the government and development partners can do, of course, there's a lot to do. First of all, I think the definition of MSMEs need to be revisited, in terms of how many people they will employ, what size of loan they can avail, what should be their financing, what should be their return, because there's quite a big gap between each sector. So when someone graduates from cottage to micro, she may not have enough capital to start a micro business, but I think those gaps should be revisited. And then the loan procedures certainly should be more simple. And Mr. Mezbaul is here. He very nicely explained the great initiative that Bangladesh Bank is taking at the moment. But I think if there was a way of banks to sort of virtually visit these women's shops or businesses who are in remote areas, that would probably make things easier for them instead of physically visiting them. And from my association, I have endorsed 3 of my members to get loans. So, there are many associations, but there's also people who are outside the reach of associations and chambers. How to bring them under this umbrella? And there's absolutely no other alternative to fintech apps, like innovative fintech packages. And to create awareness, you have to sit with them. You have to talk in their language. You can't talk to them formally. So when you go to a village, for development partners, I'm saying, if they want to do a training program, for example, let's say, they will have to hire someone local, someone these women know, and then go to their households and then, go with the brochures and tell them what benefits they're getting. They need to know how they are benefiting from creating a bank account or how they're benefiting from joining a group. So those are, I think, they're very simple things to do, but these things need to be done.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And it still shows that whatever digital we talk about, that human interface and that value proposition is also very important to bring to the customers. So I think we are nearing time of a session. And what I would like is just to give you a 1-minute space to give your final comments, observations, insights. The question is very simple. As per your experience and as per the industry that you represent, what are the 2-3 critical factors that you see needs to be worked on, either by the public or the private sector, to really address the issues of the informal, micro and small enterprises and onboard them into the digital transformation space? So over to Mr. Haque. Sorry, Mantasha, Ms. Ahmed, please, yeah. No, you wanted to say something?
No, it's okay. I'll talk after Mr. Mezbaul.
Okay. Mr. Haque, over to you.
Basically, from my point of view, Rajiv, both the public sector, private sector, regulators has to work together in order to bring this informal sector to the formal sector, because we have created the environment. Now it's the due responsibility of the association and the banks to come up with the right kind of product, and the operators who are working in the payment area and in the financing area. So this is one thing that all of us has to work in a coordinated manner, so that we can bring the desired result that we are expecting to see. And you have to bring this informal sector to the formal economy. Otherwise, you cannot have that sort of impact in the economy which we are perceiving and which we need to achieve in order to go forward. Basically, this is the coordinated effort between the public sector, private sector, regulators, and everybody. And we have to work together to bring these people in the formal financial system.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's a very important point on the public-private partnership platforms that we always try to encourage, and that is needed in our particular economy. Dima, over to you for your final thoughts.
Sure. I tend to agree. Also, I guess public-private sector partnership would be very badly needed to help the MSME. But I would like to suggest a more pragmatic approach, which is probably more timely manner, which is I think we need to move some of these impact funds, those either debt or equity, to be really actively looking, because I guess at the end of the day, and I'm probably coming from more capitalist background, is that this force, which if it's intended for good, I think at the end of the day, it will create a financial inclusion. And obviously, the government side need to also monitor and facilitate when it is used for the benefit of the society. So I guess I would like to send my message to all of the impact funds out there that there is a huge opportunity where you can make money and also make a difference, and be bold and in innovative area. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Dima. Thanks a lot. And you know, that's always a push and a pull, but that's a very important suggestion that's needed for the market and driving the impact funds to have the triple bottom line. And that's where I think now we have been talking about blended finance and how, you know, the kind of ODAs and the grants can also be used to really leverage and bring impact capital with a return and a commercial return or a partial commercial return. Thank you for bringing that point out. Very important. Ms. Ahmed, last thoughts from you and the last voice from you.
Yes, thank you. I think from the government side, from the Bangladesh government side, if we could have a very like an integrated saving schemes for the women through fintech, which they can operate or monitor and manage from their own mobile phones, that would be really fantastic. Because when a mother saves some money, she usually invests it in her children's future. So that would really be an incentive for them also to join fintech. And I think from the regulator's point of view, if there was like a fair competition among the tech companies to come up with innovative products, you know, because there are some big players, there are big players everywhere. But there should also be space for innovative players, you know, players with innovation and good products that are suitable for our simple rural women. And I think that a priority should be given to women in the cottage industry, because when women work from home, especially rural women, I think it also solves their socio-cultural problems. You know, they're staying home, they're looking after their in-laws and children, and they're also working at the same time.
Right.
But for that, we really need to strengthen the supply chain. We need to strengthen the manufacturing sector, particularly because during COVID, a lot of people suffered due to lack of raw material supply. So if those things could be taken care of, that would be really great.
Thank you. That's a very important point. And in fact, one of our esteemed speaker, Tina Jabeen, is also there in this whole event. And Startup Bangladesh, I think, is a very great effort in that direction. Thanks a lot on behalf of UNCDF and the Singapore FinTech Festival. Really, it was a pleasure having you three speak about it and share your experiences and insights. I believe the participants would have also enjoyed this whole discussion. Thank you all once again, and we'll close the session now. Thank you. Have a nice day and a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.